James, welcome to Facing the Canon.
It's wonderful to be here, thank you.
I've known about you for a while and I'm really glad you're on the programme today. How tall are you, James?
I'm 3'7", which is great.
Now, tell us, what's the background to you being 3'7"?
Sure. So I was born with a rare form of dwarfism, which is called dystrophic dysplasia. And my parents are both average height, and I have an older brother who is 4 years older, but he's a bit shorter than me. And now my brother and I have got the same condition, and there's no history in our family at all. So we are really I'm 1 in a million, and my brother is 1 in a million, because that's how it works in the genetics. It's amazing. It was only God, to be honest.
So, yeah. And is your brother, how tall is he?
He's about 3 foot.
He's about 3 foot.
Yeah, which is great. Because it's always great fun when we were a little bit younger. He was a bit older, but I was the one that was bigger and taller and could do stuff to him.
Where were you born?
I was born in North Wales, in St Asaph, a wonderful part of the world, and I love being in North Wales. I love being Welsh. I'm a proud Welshman. I speak fluent Welsh, and I had all my education in Welsh, and now we just love using the Welsh language, and it's the father's land, Wales.
I know that you're many things. I mean, you're a pastor, you are a preacher, you're a TV presenter, you're an actor, and you've got a lovely sense of humour.
Well, life's too short, pardon the pun. You've got to have a lot of fun.
So how was it for you and your brother growing up?
We had an interesting time. I think during my primary years, we didn't really know much difference, because all the children around us were around the same height anyway. And then it wasn't until high school when I started realising, I'm not growing as much as these my peers and my friends, and that's when things started to. I couldn't do some things. So, I wanted to be in the rugby team. I wanted to be in the football team. I wanted to go swimming and doing all these activities that everybody else was doing. But then I realised that there's some things I couldn't do. And then there were the obvious things. If I went to Tesco or Sainsbury's or wherever, I couldn't reach the cereal on the top shelf, but I could use my mouth, because I was quite a confident person and always have been a confident person. But in school days, when I was about 15, I started having some tricky days. I really had started to question God, question why I was the way I was, the way I am, as dystrophic dysplasia with rare form of dwarfism. Why have I been created like this?
And when was that condition diagnosed? How old were you?
Yeah, so actually, it was my condition was diagnosed when my mum was 20 weeks pregnant. But they hadn't realised with my brother until he was about 3 months old. But when my mum went for her 20-week scan with me, they said, we've got something to tell you. And my mum, being my mum, she just said, I know. He's like my other son, isn't he? Because they did the measurements and they realised my limbs were a bit shorter.
Yes.
So my mum, a wonderful, wonderful lady, who was the best mum in the world and my best dad in the world as well. And they're just incredible parents that have always encouraged us, inspired us, still does. And they've just always been there, ready to support us in any way. But they've always challenged us in the right way, so that we can go and be independent, despite having these disabilities, because I can do everything that you can do, just in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah. And
I like that.
And I love that, that I'm able to do anything, because all things are possible. And I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. So give me a shot and I'll try my best.
That's a great scripture.
Yeah.
There was a bit of bullying at school.
There was, yeah.
And how did you cope with that?
Not very well, to begin with, if I'm honest. I used to go home upset. I used to go home angry. I used to go home to my bedroom and get under the quilt, and I would literally just cry. And I remember one day I came home and I'd had a really bad day. Somebody threw a knife at me and it just hit the back of my electric wheelchair, because I used a wheelchair in school just for safety. And it was inches away from going into the back of my head. I went home. I was crying and my mum came in and she said, "Don't worry, it's okay. God's got a plan for your life, and God's going to use you because you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are his works. And that stuck with me. And it was like a switch went off in my heart. And from that day onwards, I felt like I was filled with a faith-filled confidence and a boldness that I'd never felt before from God. And I've always lived on that and I stand by the word and the promises, because his promises are yes and amen. And I will live by that. And that's why I do what I do today, to help people understand that we have a plan, and not just a plan, but a good plan. And a plan not to harm us, but to prosper us, in Jesus' name.
James, that's so good. Fearfully and wonderfully made.
Amen.
And that's what God says.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's wonderful. And his word will never go void. And, it's a wonderful thing that we can rely on him. We can trust in him. And, we're always encouraged to walk. In Psalm 23, it doesn't say that we should stop going through the valley. It says we walk through the valley. Even though when times are tough and those times are anger, bitterness or whatever, we just keep walking and the Lord will just sustain us. And he's with us every step. Being a Christian isn't easy, but we know one thing, he's always with us.
He's always with us. Tracy, tell us, how did you and when did you become deaf?
Just before I was 3, so a long time ago now, but I had measles, and then I had a high fever with the measles, and it turned to encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain. And so I was in hospital for several months and became kind of paralysed. And actually, when I came out of hospital, they didn't realise that I couldn't hear. And in fact, it had affected my eyesight as well, but they didn't realise that either. And because all the kind of focus was on me learning to walk again and use my arms and that. And the nature of the deafness is that I can't interpret what I hear. I do hear more then, less now, but I do hear some sound. And so when I had any tests, it wasn't obvious that I couldn't hear. So, but that was how it came about. And for the first few years at school, it wasn't known. And so school was quite a struggle to begin with.
But then it was diagnosed that you had lost your hearing.
Yes, when I was 12, eventually. And so it was good that I knew what was happening. It didn't actually affect the fact that the teachers didn't expect much of me, though. And because it was a sort of stream system and I was already in the low achieving streams, and I just stayed there. But they knew now, and I knew that I wasn't slow learning, but it had taken a long time.
No, well, you were definitely not, but you ended up doing a degree and you studied English.
Yes, I did, yes. That was an amazing thing, really. I mean, looking back, I don't know how I did it. But I wanted to leave home, I wanted to get away. I wanted actually to become a teacher of the deaf. And so I was determined to get some A-levels. I didn't get all of them that I wanted, but I got enough to go to a college, here in fact in Hertfordshire, and started training to be a teacher. And it didn't work out to be a teacher in the end. I couldn't manage it in school. But I did a degree in English Lit, and I did get quite a high grade. I think God must have been helping me, even though I didn't know him at that point.
Yes. Oh. Jade, obviously you're disabled.
Yes.
What's the background to that disability?
Yeah, it's a very unusual disability. It's very rare. It's called acute transverse myelitis. And it's so rare that they said that I had more chance of winning the lottery than getting it. I just thought, oh, great, thank you. I wish I'd been old enough to play it then. But yeah, basically, it was just one day when I was 12 years old. I didn't feel ill at all. I went to a park. I was on a swing, I jumped off the swing, and out of nowhere I had these shooting pains going down my thighs, out of nowhere. And they were so intense that I actually lay on the wet grass because I just thought, oh, I need to get some relief from this pain. And my dad thought I was messing around. He's like, come on, Jade, get up. And I managed to get up and I could see a bench across the park. And I just remember thinking, I need to sit down. So with each step, I could feel the power draining out of my legs. It was almost like being a puppet and not being able to coordinate your legs. I made it to the bench, and little did I know that that was the last time I ever walked. I couldn't get back up from that bench. My dad had to carry me home and we had to go straight to hospital. So very suddenly, within seconds. And for months, they didn't know what was wrong with me until they came up with this diagnosis, which it's effectively an autoimmune condition. They believe that my immune system went to attack maybe a normal cold virus in my body, and there was some confusion, and my own immune system attacked my spinal cord, which made it swell, which is where the pain came from. And when it had swollen up, it got damaged basically by rubbing against the vertebrae in my back. So basically it's like I've short-circuited. So the messages going from my brain don't all reach my legs. So I have some feeling in my legs, but minimal and no movement. So it's,
and initially, Jade, when you first went into hospital, one of the nurses didn't really believe you.
No.
And tried to, hey, I'm going to help you stand up.
Yeah, I always remember she said, well, this is really odd that all of a sudden you just can't walk. And I was like, yes, that's why I've come to hospital. It is odd. And I remember she kind of picked me up from under my arms and lifted me. And she thought that my natural reflexes would kick in. And so she just let go, thinking I would just catch myself. And I just fell into, a ball on the floor, basically. And that's when they started to take me seriously and think, okay, something might be actually wrong here. But, it was for that first 24 hours, they thought that it might have been a trapped nerve and that, oh, just wait till you can wiggle your toes and then you'll be back walking again tomorrow. And little did we know that wasn't going to be the case.
No, and you stayed in hospital for several months.
Yeah, I did. I had to live in hospital. I couldn't go home because it wasn't accessible. My bedroom was upstairs. I couldn't even get in the front door because it was too narrow. And so I lived in hospital. And it was only after about 2 months that they said to me, we don't think you're going to recover from this. So we still had a bit of hope up until that point that I might make a recovery. And I always remember them saying to me, you probably will walk again, but you'll need a walking stick. And I thought that was horrifying. As a 12-year-old,
yes.
I just thought, go back to school with a walking stick. I mean, now I'd love to have a walking stick, it's perspective, isn't it? But yeah, so, we thought that I might recover for quite some time, but it just never happened for me. They just said, keep trying to wiggle your toes, and it just never happened for me.
And then they eventually said, you're not going to be able to walk.
No, you're not going to be able to walk. Whatever you can feel now is probably going to be what you've got for the rest of your life. You will have to be a wheelchair user. So, yeah, that was kind of 8 weeks into being in hospital. They gave me that diagnosis.
How did you, as a young, a teenager,
yes,
a Christian,
yes,
how did you process that?
Yeah, it was such a surreal time looking back because there was no kind of cause or effect. Things happen to us in life and, usually we think we do something and then something happens from that. But with this, it was so out the blue and so completely life-changing. And I always remember I would have, we had a great church that we were part of and they were amazing. And I'd have visitors every day and I'd have Christians and non-Christian friends come and visit me. And both sets of people would ask me, why do you think God has let this happen to you? That was the question that both, people with faith and without faith were asking me. And it's really weird to look back now because I'm a 34-year-old woman, but being kind of 12, 13 at the time, I always remember saying, but why not me? And for me, it was kind of, I saw that bad things happened in the world. I read my Bible and there were plenty of bad things happening in that. And God never stopped that from happening. He never promised that we wouldn't go through, bad times, but he does promise that he'll always be with us. And I could feel his presence with me in those kind of first few weeks, particularly in hospital. I didn't feel alone in it. And it gave me a kind of confidence, even though it was still such a hard time and still a time that I was still trying to grapple with what does this mean for my life. I knew that I wouldn't have to go through it alone. And I think that was really comforting for me at that time.
But then you had to start adjusting.
Yes.
And that took a bit of time.
Yes, I had to learn to sit up again. So at first, when you've got a spinal cord injury, if you can't feel properly, your centre of balance goes. So I would sit up and I'd just fall straight over again. So I had to learn, because my centre of balance is now higher up than yours would be. So I had to learn to sit again. I had to learn to dress myself again. I had to learn to get in and out of a wheelchair, how to move legs that are heavy and don't want to do what you want them to do. You know, so it's kind of becoming a baby again almost, and having to reel in the most basic, you know, life skills.
And then you then discovered you had an issue with your back that needed major surgery.
Yeah, so because my spinal cord injury isn't even throughout my spinal cord, I'm actually stronger on my right side than my left. And so what happens is, if you're stronger on one side, your spine will go to the stronger side, it'll get pulled over. So my weaker side wouldn't be able to keep it straight, it would just be pulled. So I got scoliosis, basically. And so at the age of 17, I had to have major surgery to get that corrected and straightened up.
And that was 2 major operations in a week?
Yeah, it was.
Under a lot of anaesthetic?
Yeah, they had to go in, had to remove a rib, collapse my lung, go through the front of me to get to the back of me, which still doesn't make sense to me even now. And then a week later, they had to go in through the back, where they put, basically from my neck to my pelvis, I mean, titanium rods, screws. There's a lot of metal work in there. I definitely...
Bionic woman.
Well, the alarms go off at the airport for me, you know. It's so yeah, all that happened at 17 then. So that was another thing that I had to adjust to as well.
Now, you are 100% deaf.
Yep, that's right.
And you are lip reading me.
I am, yes. So make sure you speak clearly.
Do I speak clearly?
You do. You're excellent lip read.
Now, I'd like to ask you about lip reading. How easy was that to learn?
Not very easy, but I knew I was going to become deaf. So before I did, I thought I would try and learn how to lip read. And I was told tips, like, you know, face the person, don't have the light behind the speaker. And I was also told some people have an affinity to do it, some don't. So I prayed every night that I would be able to lip read when I became deaf. And I still do. I always pray, please help me lip read this person, including you. And often I can lip read, not always, but often.
Very good, Emily. Okay, so you were not born deaf.
No.
But it became very obvious that you had certain health concerns. When did you first discover that you had a neurological problem?
Well, it was probably, from the time I was about 13, 14, I began to have headaches and bad balance walking. Didn't know that it was anything other than just me being strained. But then when I was 16, I was sent for a scan, and they found tumours in my body, particularly on my hearing nerves, which they said needed to come out. And when they did, that's when I was deaf. So I found out when I was 16.
And it was diagnosed that you've got a condition called...
Yeah, can you say it?
Neurofibrosis. What is it?
Nearly. Neurofibromatosis type 2.
Type.
Well done. Not a bad effort.
And what does that condition... Explain the condition to us.
So basically what it means is that I, or anyone with it, can grow benign tumours on nerves anywhere in the body. I've had so many surgeries over the years with tumours on my spine, or in my leg, or in my head, or on my arm. And yeah, and it often does cause deafness and facial weakness and various other symptoms, but it affects everyone differently.
Now, when they discovered that you had 2 tumours in your brain, they removed the first tumour. I think you went to a hospital in Nottingham.
Yeah, that's right. I went to a hospital in Nottingham because that's the main sort of head centre near where I live. And they removed that one tumour. And unfortunately, things went a bit downhill, and I ended up sort of in intensive care. And my parents were asked permission to switch off my life support machine. And obviously they didn't switch off the machine in the end. But then I had a lot of rehabilitation to get myself walking, talking, eating. And then I did manage to get sort of back going again.
following that operation, you lost the hearing in one ear.
Yeah, that's right.
And then later on, the doctors basically said to you they have to operate on the other ear and remove the tumour.
Yeah.
And if that meant you would lose your hearing.
Yes.
Or if you didn't have the operation, you'd lose
I'd
your
lose
life.
my life. Yeah, they actually said that in so many words. Your hearing or your life. You've got to lose one of them. And it never actually occurred to me to say, well, I'll lose my life then. So I had to have the operation, which took my hearing. Yeah.
So from the day they told you that you would have to have the operation to when you did have the operation, how many days?
It's hard. It wasn't all that long, but I mean, it would have been months. It wasn't sort of like you're having the operation next week. It was probably 3 or 4 months when they said, between when they said you need the surgery and when I had the surgery.
So during that time, you knew that you were going to lose your hearing completely.
Yeah.
So what did you immerse yourself in prior to that?
I had a sort of a bucket list, and I think it's okay to call it a bucket list because my hearing was going to die. So it was a bucket list of things I would want to do. Things like going to a concert. I mean, music was huge in my life, so a lot of the things I wanted to do revolved around music. That the night before I had to go to hospital for the surgery, I phoned my family to hear their voices, and various things but it's actually really hard to think what do I want to hear when I'm never going to hear again? What's the last thing I want to be able to hear? It's difficult, but yes, I heard as much music as I could.
You heard the Messiah.
Yeah, that's right. I heard Handel's Messiah because that was a big thing for my family. We went every Christmas to a performance of the Messiah, and I thought the last night when I'm in hospital before I lose my hearing, there's no point sleeping. So I would just listen to Handel's Messiah all night, which is what I did. And I can still remember it, still remember the music. Yeah.
But you also went to the theatre. Was that the night before your operation?
Oh, right, yes, I did. That was another thing on my bucket list, to go to the theatre in Stratford and see Shakespeare. But unfortunately, that didn't really work out. But then a performance of The Secret Garden, the musical, was showing, and I thought, that'd be great to go to. Theatre, music, ticks all the boxes. But then the performance opened the day I was due to lose my hearing. So I thought, well, I can't go. But then the theatre said, they were so kind, they said, well, why don't you come for the final dress rehearsal? And it'll be just like the normal thing, but it'll be just you in the theatre with my family. And the person who composed the music came and sat with me and talked with me, and so it was really good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Emily, you're a person of faith.
Yes.
You love Jesus.
Yes.
You know Jesus is with you.
Yeah.
Did you sense him as you were going into that operation?
I'm trying to think back whether I actually sensed him. I knew he was there because he's always there, and I knew he'd been there in that night as I waited, as I listened to the music, reminded of his presence there. And some of the words in Handel's Messiah reminded me, I know that my Redeemer lives. So it was a reminder that Jesus was with me. I can't honestly say I was fully aware of sensing his presence as I went into theatre. I think I was just terrified.
Of course.
But I did know he was there.
Yeah. So, after the operation, how did things change for you?
Well, after when I woke up deaf, well, for one thing, I experienced a terror I've never experienced before. When I woke up in silence, complete silence, I was terrified. And I was terrified for a long, long, long time. Even after I was discharged from hospital, went home, I was just scared of everything because I didn't know anything. We rely a lot on sound for clues as to what's going on about us, but I had nothing of that. And yes, I was terrified, very scared.
God had a plan and a purpose for your life.
Yeah. It's interesting from when I was very small, before I knew about any of this. One of the earliest things I can ever remember knowing from God was that I would speak. And I didn't do anything about it, to be honest. I just had that knowing and I carried it with me. And it turned out that what I would speak was my story that I didn't at that time know that he was going to develop into quite a story. So yeah, and things have moved on, and I do speak and write books and things like that, things I would never have thought of doing before I was ill.
I went to the Royal College of Music when I was 19, and I studied the oboe there and piano and things like that. And that's when my faith was really put to the test, because somehow when I got to college, I was living suddenly in what we might call a sighted world. I'd been with blind people most of my life, and suddenly, I had to learn my way from a hostel where I lived to the college. I had to learn busy route in London with a white stick, walking along in London. I'd never done anything like that before. And one day when I was there at the college, the first day it was, a student had arranged to meet me and take me back to the hostel just to be sure that I could manage it, and she didn't turn up. And I remember sitting in the canteen feeling desolate, and I prayed as never before, and I said, God, if you're really there to help me, what am I going to do now? I don't know anybody. I don't know how I'm going to get back to my hostel. And just then this man came up, sat next to me, said, I'm Martin, I'm from the Christian Union. And I said, oh, are you? And he said, yes. And we got chatting, and I told him my predicament. He said, don't worry, I'll walk with you. You go ahead of me and I'll follow you and check that you're doing it okay. And those people in that Christian group utterly befriended me and kind of took me under their wing. And the days at college for me were incredible. That's where my faith began to grow.
And it really blossomed. And but were you the only blind person at that particular school?
Well, yes, at the Royal College of Music I was at the time, and students were helpful. I remember, because technology wasn't advanced as it is now, I had to dictate all my compositions and music to people, and students who were willing had to write it all out for me. I had friends who would try and put music notation into Braille for me. It was quite a business. And I loved playing the oboe. One thing I never did do, which might surprise some people who know that I sing now, is that I never studied any voice production or vocals. I was a pianist of a type, and I was an oboist. And I always thought if God was going to use my music, it would be like as an oboist, if you like. Never ever thought that I would ever be used to be a singer.